Nearly 3 weeks after Josh Peck's episode on his podcast with Tana Mojo dropped, he's found himself in some drama over things that he said. I'm not sure why it took a little while for this story to go around, but more and more people are talking about this now and criticizing Josh for what he said at the time. During the podcast episode, Tana mentioned Jeanette McCurdy's book and then asked Josh about if he interacted with Dan Schneider. And as he's telling her that he was the one that literally created Drake and Josh ends up revealing that he had Jeanette on his podcast to talk about her book when it was released last year, and she was actually supposed to be the first podcast guest that him and his co-host Ben had on the show. But after recording the episode, she wanted it scrapped. She didn't want them to put it out, and they didn't put it out.
Did you ever have any interactions with Dan Schneider?
He created my show.
Yes! Sorry.
Both shows I was on.
I've been in a little Dan Schneider TikTok rabbit hole lately.
Everyone is.
I read Jeanette McCurdy's book. I thought it was an amazing book.
So did we, despite what Jeanette says.
Did she think?
She was our first ever guest.
Really?
Like the day that she released her book. Like she was becoming it. She came on. It was an amazing get for us. We were truly good guys. Unbelievable interview. Spoke about everything that she wanted to, nothing that she didn't want to. It ended, and she told us not to run it. We've spoken about this endlessly. But so there is an unreleased episode of our podcast, the two of us and Jeanette.
Josh then goes on to say that he actually tried to reach out to her later on, but felt like he might actually have been blocked by her.
So us being the good guys we are, said Jeanette, no problem, we'll kill it.
Yeah.
Do you want to come back on? No response. So 4 or 5 months later, we got you. We got H Duff. I'm like, we're killing it. Let me check in. She owes us. All I wrote to Jeanette after 6 months was, hi. Hi.
Oh, that's tough.
I got a green bubble. Am I blocked?
Oh, wow.
I think I might be blocked.
Oh, wow.
Or she was on a 12-hour flight.
I think Tana thought that Josh maybe had a similar experience as others who have opened up about Dan Schneider, but that didn't seem like the case for him. Like, he actually seemed like he had a good experience at Nickelodeon and didn't have bad things to say about Dan.
You read Jeanette's book.
Yeah, I read Jeanette's book. I don't know where. Oh, and obviously the Dan Schneider or alleged Dan Schneider chapters were so crazy, and it just put me and all the Jamie Lynn Spears conspiracies and stuff like that. I don't want to grill you on this. I don't want to ask you anything that makes you.
We'll do it on your pod. No, you can.
What were your interactions with him like, if I can ask?
I am being 100% honest. He just was a tough boss.
Yeah.
And I was a kid.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
With it, obviously, I'm sure you've unpacked that in therapy, the feelings of
That's right.
having a fucking boss when you're a kid.
Later, his co-host Ben chimed in to say that during the episode with Jeanette, they actually talked about this. They talked about how different their experiences were as a child star working with him.
But see, I like what you just said, because we actually spoke about it a little during the Jeanette podcast that never aired and will never see the light of day. But at least from my understanding, like, Josh's experience as a child actor was far different from what is portrayed by others. Josh, I don't think that you would agree that you hated it. Like, I think you loved it, right? Like, I know that there were tough things, of course, but
yeah, I think both things can be true, right? There was a duality to it.
And this led people to wonder if this was the reason Jeanette didn't want the episode to air. I personally wonder if during the conversation, Josh was referring to Dan by his name, because in other interviews and in the book, Jeanette is referring to what people believe is Dan as the creator. She doesn't actually mention him by name. And I don't want to speculate on what was said in their conversation on the podcast too much, but from what Ben said, it's clear that they had two different perspectives, and she clearly wasn't comfortable with the episode airing. She also talked about in other interviews at the time of her book release that the book was about so much more than just that one topic and her time at Nickelodeon. It also had so much more in it that she had to share about her life. Now, like I said in the book, when she did bring him up, she talked about him as the creator, and she detailed the exploitation that she faced at the hands of this person. And she opened up about her negative experiences on set for iCarly, with claims that she would be visibly uncomfortable on set, and recalled that during a kissing scene with her co-star Nathan, she was being shouted at by the creator and had to reshoot the scene 7 times. Jeanette also wrote about being pictured in a bikini at a wardrobe fitting and having the creator encourage her to drink alcohol despite not being of drinking age. She says that her mom was present for some of the things that happened while working on set, but would brush any negative or concerning things off as just being a part of Hollywood. And following her exit from Nickelodeon, she said that she was actually offered $300,000 from the network to never speak publicly about her experience there, and she declined that offer. And she said that she was really proud of the fact that she declined that because that money could have put her niece through college, but she wanted her voice still. And Dan Schneider, the alleged creator, created not only Drake and Josh, but iCarly and several other Nickelodeon shows. And Nickelodeon did announce in 2018 that they would no longer be working with Dan, and there were several publications that had reported on complaints about Dan's alleged behavior, including his alleged well-documented temper issues. There was also an internal investigation that was done, and they claimed to have found things such as like him being difficult to work with, and that he had tantrums and he would send angry emails and all of that stuff. So to hear that Josh had an experience that was completely different, and hearing that he was talking about that with her, is very interesting, and especially to hear that she didn't want the episode out there and that his text message didn't go through. It like really makes me wonder like what was said when they sat down to talk to each other. But what really upset people was that when these clips were going around recently, which like I said, like this interview did happen like a while ago, but this is like recently people have found out that he has said this. But at one point he said, and I felt like he was joking a little bit, but people did not like it, but he said that Jeanette owed him. And the people that were seeing the clips of this commented on these videos saying, good for her, she doesn't owe him anything. Him sharing this is reason enough to be blocked, LOL. And super random, but as a result of this all coming out, I've recently been seeing people leave comments on his post saying that this is the reason why he was part of the vlog squad at one point. It was all very interesting seeing these comments, but people said things like Josh Peck gives David Dobrik vibes, the eyes are vacant, and now it makes more sense why him and David Dobrik were friends. Interesting connection that people are trying to make with that one, but something else I was seeing comments about was this talk of Josh having invited Dan to his wedding back in 2017. Someone said, given he invited Dan to his wedding, her blocking him is 100% valid. Now, I'm not sure if this is true because there's no photos of Dan at the wedding, and obviously that doesn't mean that he wasn't ever invited, but it also means that he might not have been invited. But the reason why that even came up was because there was drama surrounding his wedding at the time that he was getting married. Drake Bell threw this whole fit online because he was not invited. And so some people have found it very interesting that there's like rumors that Dan was invited, but like Drake Bell clearly was not invited. And Josh did not speak about this whole thing until he went on the BFFs podcast last year, where he opened up about all of the hate that him and his wife received for not inviting Drake Bell to his wedding.
I didn't invite him to my wedding, and the internet went crazy. He starts writing these tweets that immediately like catch fire. And so then he like leans in and goes on this press tour about how heartbroken he is and like creating this narrative that just wasn't true. And here I am, like, I don't care about me, it's whatever. I signed up to be a public person, it is what it is. But here's my wife, right, who's like getting torn down on the internet, and I'm like, she's private and she just got married. Can't you just enjoy this?
Given everything that's come out about Drake Bell now, it's crazy to think that Josh got so much hate for not keeping in touch with him. But also, like, people lose touch, and it's crazy to think that people were making it such a big deal that they did not after all these years. But the only reason why I brought that up was because Some people do think that it would be weird if he was friends with Dan but not Drake, but we just don't really know if that is really true, that he is in touch with Dan in any way. Anyway, this Tana podcast had people going down a whole rabbit hole, clearly, and questioning Josh a bit. But I want to know what you guys think about all of this that has come out and been said. The fact that Jeanette was on his podcast and then the episode was scrapped. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.